Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast this evening. Tonight, we are really excited to bring you an author. Her name is Annette Wasden. And before we start talking to her, we need to jump into this.
I'm April Tribe Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
All right, and we are back. We had a little bit of a technical bump, but now we are back, and hopefully everything will go smoothly from this on out. All right, so Miss Annette Wasden, as you can see running on the ticker underneath there, she has written an amazing book called The Butterfly Experiment. So this is something really important for anyone out there who has experienced pain or suffering, or if they know of someone who has. And so as Annette explains things tonight, I want you to be thinking about those people who you could share this with. And I've dropped the link below in the Facebook group about her book and where you can get it, as well as on the YouTube channel. So feel free to go over there and subscribe, click the bell, and let's get this thing rolling. All right, Miss Annette, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, wonderful. First of all, thank you so much for having me on here.
Welcome.
I was told years ago by doctors and therapists and friends and family that I am like the butterfly, which means that I was a caterpillar, and then from the caterpillar I went into the cocoon, and I stayed in the dark cocoon for many, many years. And I was misdiagnosed for multiple medical reasons. And it seemed like once I got diagnosed the proper diagnoses, then I was able to break through the cocoon and spread my wings and fly and become the butterfly I am today.
Fantastic. It's really tough when we are stuck in that dark place to really think, is there something more? I guess I'm just comfortable here. I call that the comfort cage, because you are trapped, you are stuck there. But tell us how finding a new diagnosis or a new way out brought you into becoming this butterfly.
There's many, many ways that I can answer that. But my biggest thing for me was persevering through my whole life and not accepting small answers by doctors, therapists, family, friends who thought they were better, but literally looking within myself saying, I know that there's something more out there. And so when I was misdiagnosed, I continued to look for the right person that would diagnose me in the right, proper way. And therefore, that's where I got the book, The Butterfly Experiment, because I started realizing, April, that we are all experiments. That my diagnosis was not my dad's or my mom's or my siblings, but I had my own diagnosis. And once I got the right diagnosis that felt good for me and the right treatments, and with that perseverance, I just kept persevering through the layers of the cocoon, one right after another. And my diagnoses are right now PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, and then complex PTSD. And once we started dissecting that like an experiment you would do, then we found out what would be the best healing techniques for me. And therefore, this is why I wrote my simple book workbook, so that people can understand in very small ways and easily that they can break through as well.
Amazing. When we break through that, how did you feel? Like, what happened in your life? What changed?
Oh my gosh, everything, April. Everything. I talk about in my book, 22 years ago, I was in a psychiatric ward hospital in a wheelchair. I was on 14 prescription medications, and I was undergoing electric shock treatments. And so I was told I would never drive again. I would never work again. I was going to be put on disability. And it's taken 22 years again, and perseverance is my favorite word, but to fight through. And so when you say what has changed for me, I've reclaimed a life that I never thought could ever possibly happen at all, for what I was told, who I was, and where I was, and who I would be for the rest of my life. And I said, oh, no, no, no. We are better at this. We are going to persevere and make something out of this Annette Wasden, who I believe my higher power and the universe wanted me to become.
So, what gave you the motivation to keep pursuing? Was there, like you said, like a higher calling? What was that little voice in your head that said, we're not going to stay here,
Yeah.
Annette,
There,
we're going to get out?
right.
What happened?
There were two huge incidences. The first one was, and I'll never forget this, is I was at a local hospital, LDS hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I was supposed to be transferred to the state mental hospital down in Provo. And there were two doctors they were in-house doctors, and they had done my electric shock treatments. And I'll never forget this. They had a conference the day I was going to be transferred. And they asked my parents, they asked my therapist and my other doctors, my outpatient doctors, is there any reason why we shouldn't transfer Annette to the state mental hospital? And not one of them raised their hand. And then both those men stood up and stood in front of this table in this conference room. And I was wheelchaired in there. And they said, we believe in her. I didn't have a voice, April, at that time. I was numb. And they said, we believe in her. But I heard those words. And I felt like those were coming from angels above. I felt those were men of God, men of a higher power that saw something in me that nobody else could see. And so from there, they, instead of me being transferred to the state mental hospital, they transferred me to UNI, which is at the University of Utah Hospital, Neuropsych Institute. And from there, I was able to meet new doctors, new therapists. I came off all my medications. And from there, I I transferred into a halfway house, and I met another angel. There's many angels in our life, but one in particular angel, after I had learned how to walk out of the wheelchair, I was on the right medication, moving forward. I got in one of the big white disabled vans, and my dad had filled out the paperwork for me to become a permanent disabled individual. And we were on our way in the van with the clipboard with the paper on it to go down to the Social Security offices there on 4th South in Salt Lake. And as the other patients and individuals and counselors and doctors and therapists were exiting the van, my doctor pulled me over. And he had my paperwork on his clipboard. And he said to me, Annette, I don't believe you need to go into that building. Do you trust me? And that was a huge word, April, because people who are victims of abuse in any kind of shape or form, or neglect or trauma, the word trust is enormous. And so when he said, do you trust me? He had earned my trust over those 6 months of being in uni and then at the R2 adult residential treatment unit. And he said, Annette, I don't believe you need to walk in there. Let me work with you. Let my team of people in the halfway house work with you. And let's not put you on disability. And April, let me tell you, between those 3 men and then many, many more to come, it was just those doors opening up that kept opening other doors and opening other doors. And of course, it's like any kind of recovery. There were times that I went 10 steps forward, and there were times that I went 3 steps back, but I never went completely backwards. I just kept asking more questions, looking for more answers, looking for more treatments. And within less than a year, I had my driver's license back. I was living in my own apartment, had my first job in years. And of course, they were small things, but you know what? Now I'm where I'm at today in 22 years.
Wow. It's amazing what belief will do. It's like an expectation that if we know that even if just one is going to walk with us, you are not alone.
Yeah.
Now, those who are believers know that a higher power, Christ, God, Yeshua, whomever you label that name, is always there with you. And then there's something that just kind of, I would say, kicks it over the cliff, is
Mhm.
when that human to human contact says, I'm with you too. There's just this added support, magic, confidence. There's so many different things that happen right in that moment.
Yeah.
And when we are faced with that, there's always that decision, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, do I trust him? Do I not trust? Do I trust him? Do I not trust? Right? And they're just nanoseconds of wavering. And when we step in and step in fully, look at the outcome.
Yeah.
Truly, that butterfly effect, the layers of the cocoon coming off and off, and just puncturing through until you arrive. And it takes time, right? This is a process. It wasn't
Mhm.
hit magic shot done and we're on.
Yeah.
Process.
Yep.
So it's really incredible. And so you felt motivated? Is that how you started to write this book, or were you challenged you should share your story? How did the book come about?
I was challenged in my last hospitalization, which was, I want to say, back in maybe 2012, so about 10 years ago. And I was actually hospitalized with pneumonia and RSV. And I was in ICU at McCady Hospital. And um, so let me pause there really quick, because one thing that I want to tell your viewers, and it's very important for my story, April, is I do not read and I do not write. I'm a preschool teacher by trade, and I have a learning center. But part of my diagnosis is because of the trauma and abuse that took place when I was such a young little girl. I learned to read, but I did not learn to read and comprehend at the same time. So, back to my hospitalization in McCady Hospital, I had been transferred from the ICU floor down to just a regular medical floor. And I was off most of my tubes, and the cute little nurse said to me, "Would you like to go outside and take a walk in the wheelchair with me? You look like you need some fresh air." And so I said, "Yes, I have a beautiful little man-made pond there." And we went down there. She pushed me, and we saw some flower beds. It was springtime. It was close to May, June-ish. It was the first part of June. And she said, "Hey, I see a coworker. Do you mind if I just put the stopper on the wheelchair? And do you mind if I just go talk to her?" And I said, "Yeah, that's totally fine." And she did. And I was just enjoying the weather, the sun, and I was in the shade. And next thing I know, I hear this little, still small voice say to me, "Annette, look in the flower beds." And so I did. And it reminded me of our local temple down in Salt Lake City, the beautiful flower beds, the gardens. But it wasn't just there, it was at Red Butte Gardens. And I just was so excited to see all these flowers. And I could tell the sprinklers had just come up. And so the dew on the leaves and the flowers was just beautiful. And I was just taking in every single moment. And next thing I know is I see a spider web right in the middle of one of these flowers. And I see the Salt Lake Temple come through 3D. And I see and I hear this voice, like I said, the still small voice say, "Annette, it's time to write your book. It's time to start writing your story." And I was like, oh, I remember talking out loud saying, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Because I don't read and write. And they said, "Keep looking, just keep looking at the spider web." And as I kept looking at the spider web, the title of it wasn't this book, but it will be a book. It's one of my books that is coming in the future, and it's called "Untangling Your Spiritual Cobwebs." And it's actually one small chapter in my current book, The Butterfly Experiment. And April, I'll never forget that moment, because the vision there that I saw on that spider web, and once the temple kind of disappeared slowly back into the flower bed, and the words of the book that was supposed to be written, or my story, my personal story, I noticed that there was a small caterpillar on the left side of the spider web, and on the right side towards the top was a spider. And I just sat there and I was like, these are signs, like this is something bigger than what I can even imagine. And so I took that to heart, put it in my memory bank, and I actually started writing clear back then. I would just get out a journal and write things. I did not know exactly what or how this book or my books in the future were going to look, or my personal story was going to look like. And sometimes today I get scared because I'm like, oh my gosh, to see what I'm able to do and to kind of push through again and to share my story and how many people it's going to help. I have to tell you, I am so glad that I listened to that still small voice. And I'm so glad that not only am I writing one small book, but it's turned into be 2, 3, 4. There will be a novel. There will be so many different things. And so, but that's honestly how I was told to write my story down and share it with others.
It's really impactful how personal that calling, that nudge, that prompting is from the higher being to know what to do next. And for you, seeing that vision within a really physical aspect of things. For others, the whisper, the nudge, maybe the friend says whatever they needed to say and answer there's so many, I'll say, options. There's so many ways that it impacts us because we're so individual. And one way is not going to be impactful for someone else. And so I love how personal it was for yourself and how clear. You don't have any questions or like, I wonder. And I think what's really interesting is that you didn't question that.
Mm-hmm.
You accepted and move forward. That takes a great amount of faith and trust to do that. So congratulations on all of that. So you've led us into this future idea of more books coming. So do you have plans of when and all of that? You can't leave us hanging here with all of that great information.
I know, right? April, I just feel very prompted to tell this. And with me working with children of all ages, from infants on up to 6th grade, my biggest fear during these last 10, 12 years of writing this book was that I had not been diagnosed completely with a comprehension problem with reading. And I was afraid to let the world outside of me know, like my church people, my own dad, my own kids who were grown, because I didn't know that was going to be just another diagnosis. That was just going to be another, let's go in and get some more tests done. It scared me to death because I knew I could write in a journal, but to sit down at a computer. And so it was many, many, many situations and many, many blessings that I feel like my higher power literally landed this book into my lap. It was pretty much, here it is. Like, you have all these choices. And one of them was I was supposed to travel last September to Africa. And because of the coronavirus, I was not able to. They were not letting people in at that time. And so when I got the money back from my trip and the airfare, I asked my higher power, my Heavenly Father, what do you want me to do with this money? Like, where am I supposed to grow next? Because I was going to go over and work with some orphanages and go see the elephants that I love so much. And that's when I felt this higher power say, it's time to get a book coach. It's time to do this. And that fear, and I had to take a lot of deep breaths, and I have an amazing therapist, and I said, it's time. So I hired a book coach, and it was a wonderful experience. And I went and got tested at a local clinic with another psychiatrist. And he said, Annette, you actually don't have a lot of comprehension issues. I'm not going to put a diagnosis to it. It comes from your trauma. He said, but I tell you, if you start writing and pray and ponder and really look within yourself to start reading better and understanding, you might need to read slow. You might need to stop and have a dictionary there to figure out really what these words mean. And I'll tell you, April, it was again life changing. It was so life changing last fall. And I'll tell you what, the day I sent that final copy to the editor, well, first, I mean, not the editor, my book coach, let me tell you, it took me about 4 to 6 weeks to come clean, to tell my book coach, even after I'd hired her, okay, let me tell you, like, I might be typing this word, but literally I have my phone next to me looking up the definition of the word I'm typing. So I'm slow. And at first I thought, is that going to matter in the writing world? Or is that going to matter to, the best-selling authors? Who is this going to matter to? And I realized it was just my own fears with my therapist. And she said, Annette, let it go. And so it was interesting because as I started writing The Butterfly Experiment, the next book came to mind. And I started making notes about that book. Then the third book came. And then the fourth book came. And I was like, and I loved that they were small enough that they could be books plus workbooks. But I have had a lot of people, a lot of reviews say, Annette, some of your chapters in your book are like cliffhangers. Like, we want to know more of the story. We want to hear all the story. And so that's where the novels get to come out at the end of all this. But April, yes, to answer your question, my books will be done actually by Christmas. There will be 3 more that will be completely done. And I'm not going to say much. I know the titles. I've written them. They're just getting through this process. But I will be launching them the end of February. And I'm having an enormous book signing book reveal on Saturday, March 18th, 2023.
Wow, look at that. She's got her goal. She has a place. She knows where she's going to get to. And no matter what obstacles pop up, she's going to say, move over, sister. I got to get going.
Yeah.
So great job. Fantastic. So hopefully that motivated a lot of people out there to think, sometimes we can do whatever it is that we need. Anshu, she says, brilliant. Thank you, Anshu. She is an amazing woman from India who we know through a wonderful speaking communication guild. So thank you so much for giving us support tonight. Thank you. There's really amazing things that can happen when we follow, persevere, try to understand what's next, and stop living in the fear or in the darkness, right? And we just know that things can open up. And I think it's interesting that we fear success. We say the unknown. No, we know out there, it's what we fear is, how will it all feel? It will change. It will be different. But it will also be successful. It will also be amazing and wonderful. And yet we're like, oh, no. That couldn't possibly happen for me, or that scares me, or whatever. And we try to hide back into the cocoon. Those those caterpillars that never break out of their cocoon pass. Yep. And we don't ever want to become like that. We have to fight for that transformation. We have to fight for the change. And when we emerge, we need to carry all of our colors, our whatever, with us out into the world, because there's someone next that need that.
Yes. And I really quick, I feel so inspired to tell my story about the whole reading comprehension thing, April, because I wonder, well, I know, but I wonder how many people out there in your world and my world and all these worlds that we're trying to bring together on social media and everything, how many people don't follow through with their dreams because they're so afraid to be honest and open with themselves and to let that vulnerability out. And let me tell you, I'm pretty sure that's why I've been able to write more books faster than my first book, is because now they know how I do it. Now they know that as I sit here on my laptop, I have my phone next to me with my dictionary, but it's my way. And they have their own ways. And I would love for other people to break out of their cocoon and share their stories. Tell us what's happened to them, how they've brought through. And I'm like, I know what it's done to me. And that's why I share that part of my story is just because you think you can't, don't. Just keep persevering. If it's something you want bad enough, keep pushing.
That's right. Keep reaching out for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting what you say, because I have many, many people who contact me and they will say, it's time. It's time for me to write my story. And many of the contacts who I have suffered from abuse of some sort, or neglect, or it can be emotional, it can be spiritual, it can be sexual, it can be whatever type of abuse. And many reach out. And so I felt inspired. Here you go. Right? Felt inspired to put together a program that people can connect with. And I call it your 9 steps to writing your Thriver story.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of us have survived so many things that now we're on to the thriving. And when we hit that thriving moment, we think, I've got to share this because somebody else is stuck. And maybe my part will help someone else. And so building this course together and allowing it to open up has been really incredible. And so the opportunity to share story and to connect with the individuals that the story resonates with them is really an awesome way. So we've talked a little bit about this whole healing and transformation of your life. And in the blog, you talked about 5 different ways of how you overcame things. And it was something that was really inspiring. And that the whole idea is that really the perseverance is that bottom line for you.
Mm-hmm.
Think about everything that she shared: being stuck, being trapped in a wheelchair, going possibly down to the state in mental health institute, being being, I don't want to say stuck there, but it's possible, right? Really difficult to get out of that. But through a belief from 3 amazing people, and then the fortitude that you had to keep going, and then to not quit on the vision, it really leads to this incredible place. So Annette, share with us kind of at the end here what it is you would like to give to the whole world.
I would love to give to the whole world. If they can take anything away from me, is hope. There is hope in all things. Yeah, in everything. And don't give up. Yeah.
That's right. Never quit. If you quit, you're guaranteed to not make it through. So why not take the chance?
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities, and the fear will always be there. So sometimes you're like, yeah, sure, I know it's going to be scary, but just do it anyway.
Yeah.
If true courage and bravery means you step in through that fear, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. It's almost the motivation to keep finding what's going to be next, because now you're in it. Right?
Yes.
Now you're deep in it. So it's like, oh, I better keep going.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
really incredible. Well, thank you so much. I've dropped the links down below. Like I said, it's on Amazon. And now you've heard that she's got future books out there. And it is called The Butterfly Experiment: How to Heal and Transform Your Life. So we've touched on mental health. We've touched on a lot of different challenges, from reading comprehension challenges and, not being able to function and being almost diagnosed with a disability permanently, to look at now she has her thriving business. She works with the kids. She's able to write. So like she said, always have hope and keep persevering.
Thank you so much, April.
You're welcome, everybody. We'll see you guys soon. And thanks again for popping into the Beacon of Light podcast tonight. Catch us over there on the YouTube channel with the same name. And thank you again. We will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.